What's interesting to me about the entire situation, right? And when I say entire situation, there's a race element, there's a police brutality element,
Yep.
there's an economic element, and they're very, very intertwined. So I'm not going to try to unpack, each piece of it, but they're all very intertwined. Is really what we end up getting is it's all actually overlaid with a poverty lens, right? And so what ends up happening is you can take that poverty lens and you can literally apply it to the economic situation, obviously. You could apply it to the race side. You could apply it to the police brutality side. And one of the things that I've been thinking more and more about is you can't solve a problem unless you identify that it exists, right? So, okay, so that's pretty easy. Then two is where I think I've been disappointed is probably the right word actually, is there's a lot of people who they don't want to have a realization of the truth, right? I tweeted the other day and I said that in order to actually seek the truth, right? And I'm paraphrasing what I said, it was something like, you got to be able to have the uncomfortable conversations. You got to explore all the options, right? Yeah. And it just feels, and that, by the way, works in both directions, right? Because here's the other piece that I will say this, that I think is important to kind of keep us intellectually honest is we get in a world where everyone's protesting police brutality. And then we see a situation where a cop shoots somebody. And I always say, okay, details really matter. Because actually, there's certain situations where, like, if you're shooting at a cop and a cop shoots back and kills you, I'm probably not going to be up in the street, protesting about police brutality. If a cop shoots an unarmed man, I'm going to be really pissed, right? Yeah. And so, the nuances matter, and it's not so much blanket statements. But I do feel like on the economic side, you nailed it. Financial education has been non-existent. Right. I mean, just absolutely non-existent across socioeconomic status. But who it really predominantly hurts is that bottom 50% that doesn't own stocks, that can't come up with $400 emergency payment. Like they continue. And some of these people have actually DM'd me and literally said to me, I feel like I cannot get ahead. Yep. And I try to say, look, I can't give you financial advice, but let me just understand a little bit more about your situation. And almost always, they are doing things that play right into the hands of a system that has stacked the deck against them, right? They're living in all cash. They don't make investments. They spend more than they make, like all these things. So maybe talk a little bit about just like, we know it's a problem. How do we start to solve this? Like what are the things that we can do as an industry and really it's just humans to try to solve some of these problems?
Yeah, I love you asked this because I get so fired up about it and it's my life's mission now. So let's zoom out a little bit, right? And I know a lot of people have said, they wanted to make the distinction between protesters, rioters, and looters. I want to focus on the looters for a second. Look at what, and again, it's disgusting, but again, everything has its place, as my mother would say, right? But let's just look at what they're stealing. They're running after their gods, Gucci, Prada, Fendi, the idolatry in this country, and what we made them believe is important to them are things, not educating them enough to say a Rolex, a Gucci bag comes out of you. So we've put nothing in them. So now we're looking at the mirror of our failings. Also, that's one side. Then they go steal their needs, right? They go to a Walmart and they're stealing from there, right? Toilet paper, dog food, whatever the case may be. That is, again, a mirror of where our failings are as a country, no matter how you feel about it. And anybody that's staring in the mirror and honest with yourself, there's some things about yourself that may be a little uncomfortable. I got this little patch over here I need to get rid of, right? So it's a very uncomfortable thing. Again, I think we all agree we don't want to tear down neighborhoods. We don't want to steal. But that's how, when you look at the poverty in Detroit, that I have seen poverty all over this country. You have not seen poverty until you've seen squalor in Detroit. And then you go to Beverly Hills and you look at the difference. And there's a man that's worth $100 billion in this country. And there are people literally who don't have clean water. That's what you're seeing in the streets right now. Now, okay, great, Tyrone, you addressed the issue. How do we fix it? So now we have to focus on solutions. 3 E's: exposure, education, empowerment. Our business likes to lead with the big E, the middle E, because CFA, CFP, Wharton, Kellogg, the whole deal. Let me prove how smart I am. No one cares, right? If I can see it, I can be it. So expose me to what it is, right? Mr. Whoever, how did you get what you got? Expose me to that. Give me the blueprint, right? Because I tell people this all the time. If all I give you is money, I robbed you. But if I give you that money and in turn give you the blueprint on how to turn that dollar into $2, and then how I was in the position to give you that dollar, I robbed you if I just gave you money. I did you no benefit. So I think that's the one thing that our industry does very poorly, right? And I think someone actually said this on the podcast, shout to Emlyn. He said, our business has done a good job of getting the numbers right and the people wrong. And I think he nailed it with that one. And so now let's go to exposure. Now you look at 31% of African Americans in this country do not own stock, right? 31% do, right? So you have 60, almost 70% that don't. That's an access problem. That's an exposure problem, which is, wink, wink, why I'm so fired up about Cash App. Not only can you get Bitcoin, but you can get fractional shares of stock through the app. Like, that's powerful. Robinhood, for all of the people that want to bash it, Robinhood is access. I don't care what you think about whatever they're doing or people day trading and beating Warren Buffett. That's access for people that have never had access before. So now, yes, we have a responsibility. Now I've exposed you. Now I have to educate you. But there's two types of ignorance. Ignorance, I just don't know. And then ignorance, Pomp told me, and I don't give a crap, right? So I think we have to then go in, expose them, educate them. Now, the biggest part is the last E, which is empowerment. After I've done those two, I have to empower you, meaning what? I'm going to give you a network. I'm going to give you continued resources. I'm going to give your school technology. Probably lack Wi-Fi. You probably lack tools that you need. I'm going to give you books. We're going to create some type of scholarship to come back. We're going to bank Black in that community, or we're going to bank period in that community. So now when we need to do financial literacy or financial education in that city, you know what banks answer to? Really big deposits. So when you put really big deposits, you go, give us some resources for these kids in this school, right? Not that same school where the parents have put all the resources or whatever, this one here. So now we're getting into schools earlier. Oh, by the way, financial advisors should give up an hour of their time per day to go into these schools, support the teachers, help them with lesson plans or whatever, not to change the curriculum, but we have to be more, accessible. And then I think the last piece of the empowerment is, think about this. If all of the Blackstone, BlackRock, Bank of America, Morgan, Merrill, all of them put in a fund, and they said, all right, take all the for 1 year, we're going to take all the overdraft fees, put it in the fund. We're going to up that, $700 billion that we spend on, financial education, to $1 billion, and we're going to put that in a fund, and then we're going to spend this to simply educate, a particular area or city just for a test case. And then we can spread that all over America. Take 25 of the best financial advisors, all denominations, all backgrounds, all creeds, all religions, and have a tour and go all the way around the country instead of us going to all these fancy conferences and drinking ourselves silly. And there's S&P palm trees in the lobby, right? And then really start to educate people. And then, oh, by the way, there's some telefinance where we call people in the most impoverished areas in this country. Is there anything that we can help you with from a budgeting standpoint, personal finance standpoint? Do you understand how your SNAP or your EBT card works, right? Are you getting Social Security? All these other things. Are you up to date on your taxes? Are you going to a tax preparer versus an actual CPA? All of these things, granular, right? And then you go into an area like the South Bronx where half of the people in the South Bronx are unbanked. And then you start to get really proximate and go, okay, this is why they use payday lenders and check cashing places in the post office. And then until we get proximate to their condition, we can't help them. So then we can give them the resources that they need and then say, okay, well, you lack identity, you lack a bank account. If you lack these things, you can't do anything else. So we have to get you these resources, build infrastructure around you. And then, oh, by the way, you'll learn that these people are severely illiterate in terms of what it means to, what is a maiden name? What is a debit? What is a credit? Who cares about your Roth conversion? We got to get away from that. So we have to get on people's eye level, and financial advice. And again, I'm going long-winded here, but I'm super fired up about it. We do a terrible job of giving people financial advice, a snapshot right where you are, college graduate, high school graduate, mother of 5, whatever it is, right? Father of 2, and, corporate executive. Meet people right where they are and give them the advice in that moment. If we do a better job of that, taking the advice to the people, as opposed to spending all this money and then just saying, oh, they'll come. We have it here, right? It's like, if that's the case, then, and I just had a conversation with Hester Pierce, and she was like, are you aware of investor.gov? I'm like, I'm not, and I feel terrible because I'm a financial advisor, but she was like, check out investor.gov. There's a wealth of information there. People don't know that's there. They built it, but if it's not being brought to the people, how do they know it's going to help them?
Yeah.